The shimmering blue planet of Pharaoh's 7 hung in the sky like a jewel, its alien architecture standing in stark contrast to the primitive structures of Earth. The galaxy had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but none so unique as the relationship between the United Earth Federation and the Zovians, their strange, enigmatic alien allies. The Zovians were a peaceful species, gifted with advanced technology, but bound by one unwritten rule: never break protocol, especially when it came to intergalactic diplomacy. Captain Sarah Collins, a skilled bodyguard for high-profile diplomats, was stationed on Pharaoh 7 to protect Ambassador Laura Tharn, an influential Zovian negotiator. Sarah, a trained warrior with military precision, had always followed orders, trusting in her skills and the mission. But nothing had prepared her for what would unfold during this high-stakes diplomatic summit. Ambassador Tharn was everything Sarah admired: intelligent, charismatic, and deeply committed to peace. But Tharn also had a tendency to break from the strict norms of Zovian society, and her rebellious streak was a secret Sarah had learned to respect. The ambassador's latest mission was to broker a treaty with the Tkar, a warlike, aggressive species with an obsession for conquest. The negotiation would take place aboard a neutral space station on the edge of the galaxy, a tense setting where every move would be scrutinized. For Sarah, it was just another day of standing watch, keeping an eye on the ever-watchful eyes of alien diplomats, and ensuring that no harm came to her charge. However, as the days passed and tensions mounted, Sarah's role as protector was about to evolve into something far more dangerous and personal. The summit began on a cool morning aboard the colossal space station. Ambassador Tharn, dressed in her traditional Zovian attire, a flowing garment of iridescent fabric that shimmered like stardust, stood at the front of the Grand Hall, flanked by her security detail. The Tkar delegation was already present, their brutish, muscular forms standing out against the more refined appearance of the Zovians. The air was thick with tension as both parties exchanged pleasantries, their diplomatic smiles hiding the underlying hostility. Sarah stood at her post near the back of the room, her hand resting on the hilt of her energy blade, a weapon capable of disabling most advanced technology. She had no doubts about her ability to protect the ambassador. She had survived much worse. But as she watched the negotiations begin, she noticed something off. The Tkar leader, Gareth, a towering figure with jagged scars running down his face, kept his eyes fixed on Ambassador Tharn. His gaze not one of respect, but of something darker, interest. "Today we will finally end the war," Ambassador Tharn began, her voice calm but firm. "Both our peoples have lost too much in this conflict. Let us move toward peace." Sarah's heart raced. She had been with the ambassador through dozens of talks, but this one felt different. Gareth's body language suggested he was not interested in peace. Instead, he seemed to be waiting for something. Something that Sarah couldn't quite put her finger on. As the talks proceeded, the air grew more charged. Gareth made subtle threats under his breath, his tone barely above a growl. But Ambassador Tharn remained poised, showing no signs of intimidation. Sarah admired her calmness, but she also couldn't shake the feeling that the Tkar were playing a dangerous game, and she was about to become a pawn. Without warning, an explosion rocked the station. The lights flickered and alarms blared. Chaos erupted as the Tkar made their move. A group of their soldiers, hidden in the shadows, burst into the room, weapons drawn. Sarah's instincts kicked in. She drew her energy blade, swiftly moving to intercept any threats to the ambassador. But as the battle unfolded, something unexpected happened. Ambassador Tharn, who had always followed protocol to the letter, did something unthinkable. She charged toward the Tkar leader, Gareth. With a defiant glare, she threw herself into the fray, ignoring all security measures, all protocol. "Ambassador, no!" Sarah shouted, but it was too late. In that moment, time seemed to slow. The Tkar soldiers hesitated, uncertain of what to make of the ambassador's brazen action. But Gareth, never one to back down from a challenge, stepped forward, his eyes flashing with malice. He raised his blade, and with a flick of his wrist, he lunged at the ambassador. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. In a blur of motion, she lunged toward the Tkar leader, her energy blade crackling as it met his weapon in midair. A violent clash of sparks lit up the room. She felt the shock wave of the blow reverberate through her arms, but she held her ground. She couldn't let anything happen to the ambassador. But then, the unthinkable happened. Gareth's soldiers opened fire on the station's security system, causing a massive breach in the station's hull. The air began to siphon out into the vacuum of space, and the station groaned as it shook violently. "Get out!" Sarah screamed at the ambassador, but Tharn remained rooted to the spot, her face a mask of determination. "I can't let them destroy everything we've worked for, Sarah. I need to end this," she said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. It was clear now. The ambassador was no longer thinking in terms of diplomacy or protocol. She was acting on raw emotion, driven by a need to end the war at any cost. Sarah, despite the danger, couldn't allow Tharn to risk everything. She grabbed the ambassador by the arm, pulling her toward the exit. The station was falling apart around them, debris flying through the air, and the vacuum of space threatening to tear them apart. But the Tkar were relentless, and Gareth was no longer playing by the rules. The two women made it to the escape pods, but just as they were about to board, Gareth appeared before them, blocking their way. He raised his weapon, his gaze locked on the ambassador. "Do you truly think you can run from this?" Gareth sneered. "The Tkar will never stop hunting you." With no choice, Sarah stepped forward, positioning herself between the Tkar leader and the ambassador. She would die before letting the Tkar take Tharn. Ding. The airlock door slid open, and the vacuum of space beckoned. Sarah knew she couldn't fight forever. She had one shot to protect the ambassador. Without thinking, she threw herself into the Tkar leader, using her body as a shield to protect Tharn. There was a moment of weightlessness before the explosion of energy sent them both flying into the void. Sarah's body hit the cold metal of the escape pod's hull, the pain searing through her. The blast had caused a rupture, and the station's collapse accelerated. The escape pod was the last hope. But as Sarah looked up, she saw the figure of the ambassador standing over her, holding her own energy blade, her expression a mix of regret and resolve. "Sarah, I failed you," Tharn whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I should never have acted without thinking." Sarah shook her head, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. "No, Laura. You saved us all." But the words were lost in the chaos as the station crumbled behind them. Together they made their escape, the future uncertain but their bond stronger than ever. As the escape pod hurtled toward the safety of the nearest planet, Sarah looked at the ambassador one last time.